Channel Sports Central, we go over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over South Carolina, a team that went 2-8 overall in the 2020 season. Kind of a disappointment of a season for South Carolina, but how will this team be in 2021 is what we're going over here today. We're going to go over a few players that South Carolina will be losing, who they'll be returning, and also looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for South Carolina. Once again, this team was 2-8 last season, and down the stretch, it just was a tough time for this team. I mean, they had a brutal schedule down the stretch, having to play LSU on the road, Texas A&M. You also had Georgia as well. So it was a really tough schedule for this team last season. But either way, I mean, it was just, once again, a pretty tough stretch there. They lost their last 6 games, actually. First 5 games, this team was 2-3. Last 5 games, they were 0-5. Obviously, with losses to, say, Georgia, of course, they lost to them 16-45. Lost Texas A&M by 45 as well. So, it was just a tough time down the stretch for South Carolina. But looking at the roster preview going into next season, this is just kind of a look as to what your returning production looks like going into the next season. Colin Hill, you are going to be losing him. He was your starting quarterback last season, obviously. And looking at him, he put up just over 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 59% completion rate. So he didn't have too big of an impact on this team last season. I mean, certainly it's going to be an adjustment for this team going from Colin Hill to Luke Doty. Obviously, it looks like Doty is going to be your next quarterback next season. But of course, for Colin Hill here, he did not put up excellent stats. I think we all can agree with that. So it'll be interesting to see how Luke Doty does in his first season as overall starting quarterback, which looking at him last season, he did play a little bit, put up over 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 61% completion rate. So he has some decent stats, nothing flooring by any means, but I definitely think with some development this offseason, there's a chance that we could see a good season out of him. But looking at the running back court, of course, you return your top running back there in Kevin Harris. He was an outstanding player last season, definitely one of the better running backs in the SEC last year. He put up over 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns. I mean, he is the one bright spot of this team, and that's going to be a huge return there with Kevin Harris. He's going to be a major player to watch out for next season, especially if he can stay healthy, because once again, for Kevin Harris to be on a team that went 2-8 last season and put up 1,300 yards, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Looking at the second running back, Deshaun Fenwick, he is transferring away. He won't be with the team next season. He put up just right around 400 yards last season for South Carolina. Shea Smith is not going to be returning. He was your top wide receiver last year, and last season he had a big impact on this receiving core, putting up just over 630 yards. As for the tight end position, Nick Muse is coming back. He was your second in receiving as well last season with 425 yards. As for the offensive line, you lose 1 on there, 1 linebacker, and 2 in the secondary. So you lose 3 on the defensive side. Nothing terrible. That's right around the average that most teams lose on the defensive side. So yes, there's a moderate amount of losses for South Carolina next season. Nothing too concerning though. I mean, it's just the quarterback situation. If this quarterback situation gets figured out, if Luke Doty comes in and has an outstanding season, I could see South Carolina easily going to a bowl game next season. I mean, so much of football revolves around the quarterback that it's like, I mean, if you've got a good quarterback, there's a good chance that you're going to be a good team, which, I mean, Colin Hill, just looking at him last season, I mean, he was a decent quarterback. He got it done. He did his job. But like Luke Doty, I mean, it's time for them to move on from Colin Hill because, I mean, he just, with a 59% completion rate, you're not going to really go nowhere. But otherwise, yeah, once again, this team, chances of a bowl game in 2021, I think there's a chance. I'm not very confident about this team next season, and I think we all can agree there, whether you're a South Carolina fan or not. There's a lot of uncertainty with this team next season, and there's going to be a wide range of possibilities for this team, but chances are, I'd say, decent for South Carolina to make a bowl game. Nothing great. This team is going to be right on that gradient, I think, of 5 to 7 wins. So it's going to be close, but I definitely think this team is capable of making it to a bowl game. Looking at your schedule, though, of course, you start off the season with a game against Eastern Illinois. Should be an easy win to start off your season. You get East Carolina after that on the road, Georgia on the road on the 18th. That is going to be a brutal game. Georgia is going to be really good next season. Watch out for them. Then you got Kentucky, Troy to follow that. You got Tennessee on the road, and then Vanderbilt. So really, I mean, your first 7 games are pretty winnable. Really, if you cut out that Georgia game on the road, like 6 of those first 7 games are very winnable for this team. So, I mean, if you look at the second half of the schedule, like with that Texas A&M game, that's where things really start to get difficult. Like if you're going to be going to a bowl game, you want to at least have 5 wins under your belt by the time you hit October 23rd, because I mean, those last 5 games are going to be a grind. You've got Texas A&M on the road. You got Florida. Both teams are going to be very tough. You got Missouri on the road. You got Auburn, and then you got Clemson, of course, being one of your non-conference games. So it's going to be very tough down the stretch for this team once again. Like, the second half of your schedule is pretty brutal. First half, I definitely think is pretty winnable for this team. You could see definitely 4 wins out of this team in the first 7 games. But as for the last 5, that's where really things start to take a turn there. But for the first half of your schedule, I think the first 2 games are going to be easy wins. You should have 2 wins to start off your season. Georgia, don't even think about that game. That one's going to be a loss, easy loss, with it being on the road in Athens for 1. And for 2, Georgia's going to be a national contender next season with JT Daniels and all of them. They're going to be a great team. I don't really see South Carolina even standing a chance there. Then you got Kentucky, of course, on the 25th. That's going to be a close game. I'd say it's winnable right now for South Carolina, but I'm going to keep it as a close one. Troy's going to be a win. Tennessee could also be a win for South Carolina, but I'm going to keep it as a yellow one just because it's on the road there. So, once again, in your first 6 games, I could expect 3 to 4 wins, possibly. I mean, 4 wins would not be surprising for this team in your first 6 games. Once again, though, as you head into the second half of your schedule, that's where things really start to get tough. You got Vanderbilt. I mean, that's going to be an easy win. I mean, that should be a 20-point win at least. But then you got Texas A&M on the road in College Station. That's where things really are going to be tough. I mean, Texas A&M is going to be an outstanding team next season again, so I wouldn't really count on that one being close. Florida, I'm going to keep that as a yellow game just because it's at home for South Carolina, but I would not favor the Gamecocks right now in that matchup. Missouri is going to be a close one as well. Same thing with Auburn. I think Auburn is going to be winnable, but it's going to be a close one too. Clemson, though, with it being at home for South Carolina, I think there's a chance we could see a major upset, but it hasn't ever happened in quite a while for South Carolina there. So I've got Clemson winning that one pretty easily as well. So here's what your projection is. I've got your ceiling being 7-5, and really that seems like a low ceiling at first, but like this team just I just don't think this team has got potential to go past 7 wins. Like, there's a chance that you pull a major upset, but even then, I feel you're going to slip up in one of your easier matchups. So 7-5 is going to be your ceiling next season. Projection will be 6-6. I've barely got you making it to a bowl game, but you still are. So that's definitely a good sign for this team, being at 6-6 for your projection. The floor being the worst that you could be is 4-8. So I've got you getting at least 4 wins no matter what. It's just a matter of where. So anyway, that being said, once again, projection will be 6-6 for South Carolina next season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on South Carolina. Let me know your record predictions and all of that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you all later.